want to acknowledge Dr. Jeffrey Thompson, one of the co-founders of the International Baccalaureate Organization. He's a professor emeritus at the University of Bath, and I worked very closely with him to introduce the master's and the IB Educator Certificate in another institution. Some of the slides are an integration of his ideas. I also acknowledge the CEO of Knowledge Universe. He's no more, but Peter Maslin was one of the top CEOs who actually did a lot of market and competitive intelligence on ecological and evolutionary programs, and also educational awareness and the financial benefit that education brings to different countries. ISC research, of course, and the IB website from Switzerland. So this is an amalgamation of slides, and I have put my thoughts together to streamline a presentation that you would probably understand, so that when you have a bird's eye view of what international schooling looks like, what is the market scenario, you will very well be able to position yourself and your careers for the future ahead. So we can go to the next slide. Now, if you look at international mindedness, it defines itself beyond a curriculum accreditation. So international mindedness is what takes place in the minds and hearts of children as they work and play together with children of other cultures and backgrounds. So it is basically an integration of people and places. It is an integration of ideology, it's an experience, it is also a togetherness and the enjoyment of differences, whether they are cultural or dress or beliefs or color or complexion or whatever it is. So it is very important to understand that curriculum accreditations do not truly make you international. It is the experiential learning with a cross spectrum of staff and students from across the world, and also the validity of the experience, which is holistic all-round development of a student. Now, that being said, faculty also need to take the initiative to be professional. They have to also understand the fundamental tenets of philosophy, have to be imbibed, and once they are good role models, they can then inspire the others. Yes. Next slide. So if you look at the emerging ingredients of international education, a shared value system, diversity, these are the key words. You need to understand these keywords. And balance. There is no right and wrong definition over here. Each one can personalize the understanding of a shared value system. You may have a value system. I may have a different value system. But as long as it's shared and there's a mutual benefit, as long as there's a mutual understanding, as long as there's respect, that shared value system is okay. And in international education, the personalized education space between the child and the teacher, or the child and the facilitator, is very important. It's not about teaching a subject, it's about being a role model, it's about your personality sort of percolating and infusing a passion for learning in that student. Diversity is access to knowledge, cultural contexts, traditions, and languages. So diversity is not just in identity from different countries, but it is access to knowledge, shared knowledge. In a cultural context, you need to make sense out of this. Languages and international education is very open to accepting languages of different countries. So you can have English as a prime language, then you can have a second language, you can have Spanish, you can have French, you could even have Chinese and Hindi. So that's what it is, a balance of knowledge, a balance of skill sets, attitudes, concepts, and pedagogies. So your intellectual disposition has to be balanced out with not just cognitive development, but also your aesthetic, your spiritual, your emotional, and physical development. So you need to keep a balance in international education. Beyond curriculum accreditations, it doesn't matter which curriculum you're following. So here's a model of a learning environment for international education. Look at cultural diversity. This diversity is in the community. It is in amongst the students. Look at all the parents that are coming in, parent advisory committees, different international schools. Look at the school advisory, the board, the faculty, the teachers. They are always important. Balanced curriculum, you have knowledge here. A lot of knowledge that benefits you. Knowledge is power. Lack of knowledge, not so very good. Concepts, very important to conceptualize a bigger picture. Attitude, your attitude determines your altitude. Skills, very important to have good skill sets, competencies beyond the curriculum, beyond the textbook, and an understanding of life which is personal. which is personal. And as long as you have your personal identity, as long as you function out of that identity and you make the world a better place, then you are making a difference in the field of education beyond just teaching a textbook. Infrastructure. Now, infrastructure is a lot of, I would say, a lot of expectation that international curriculum boards have with regard to infrastructure provision. And the best infrastructure that is provided is that which contributes to large open spaces, also smaller class sizes, and also a diversity of, I would say, flora, fauna, and a play area. And in the college or university, you need to have aesthetics. You need to have those spaces where you can sit and think and plan, and it should bring about a tranquility, a peaceful, a sort of an environment where you can think and relax and then study together as a culture. Of course, a vibrant hub is always appreciated, but infrastructure and good infrastructure provision is a necessity to bring about an enriched learning environment. So international mindedness is largely caught, it's not taught. That means you will catch it, you will learn it. I mean, there's a role model there, there's someone then that you think you can learn from, you will benefit. It is essentially experiential learning. It is within an ecosystem. It could be a person, it could be a ecosystem, it could be an institution, it could be a role model, it could be a book, it could even be a movie. So it could be a visit, an expeditionary learning visit. It could be a travel experience that will change your mindset. So international mindedness is the fulcrum of any international education in context. So you need to understand that if you change your mind, you can change your world. So this is how it works. International mindedness first, which is personalized, and then later on, the provision of a balanced curriculum, a good infrastructure, and then a diversity of students, faculty, and staff from across, wherever they are, from across a country or across the world. So let's look at school education sector. Now, the international schools at the moment are affiliated to IB in Geneva and the IGCSE in UK. IGCSE, of course, has been going on many years. The IB is from 68, IGCSE more or less same time frame. National schools, ICSE, and then the ISC for 11 and 12, and the CBSE, and the articulation to PUC and iOS homeschooling. These are some of the curriculum affiliations or the boards that affiliate schools across India. And across the world, there are different curriculum schools in different countries. Like Britain has British curriculum schools, Europe has its own affiliating body, etc. So beyond that, I just want to tell you that international schools have outgrown the capacity of fiscal capacity of national schools. And we need to benchmark and plan how we as educators, how we as faculty, how we as students benefit from this. And what is your future as a teacher? What is your future as a faculty, as an educator? So now the B.Ed and the postgraduate diploma in international education, a new course that we are starting from 27th of June is an online blended program with an IB educator certificate in teaching and learning. This program is different from the B.Ed. The B.Ed is a pre-service full-time program, again, with the option for twinning that you can opt for with Geneva, or you can join the postgraduate diploma, which is an online blended program. Now, this is for working professionals, those who are already qualified with the B.Ed, who do not have a PG diploma, who do not have an IB educator certificate. And it also is for those working professionals who do not have a B.Ed but have 3 years work experience. So you have two options, a B.Ed or 3 years work experience. So if you do have a 3-year work experience, then it is for working professionals to continue flexible learning, online, blended, few workshops, few online Saturday classes, assignments, and then few contact workshops on the university campus. Christ University is the first university in India to offer such dual certification programs. So it is a unique distinction, and I think something that we all should celebrate and participate in, making sure that we grow from here. Yes, ma'am. Now, look at the range of international schools. A lot of traditional international schools are serving a globally mobile expatriate clientele. Growth not only in number, but in diversity of schools. The United World College movement, a lot of United World College schools, different kinds of schools, displaced national schools, not in a negative sense. By that, I mean some national schools are opting for an internationalization of their curriculum. They are looking at schools going into a dual curriculum option. Some CBSE schools have started the IB. A few of the ICSE schools have started the IGCSE. So you have this sort of a displacement from one set of curriculum into another set of curriculum. And the infrastructure provision could be on the same campus or different campus, doesn't matter. And many individual owner initiatives bridging a lot of barriers. So a lot of individual owners want to create their own brand and their own value. Some of the embassy schools like that, I won't take names. And then there are systems or chains of international schools today. Some of them are Shell schools, GEMS. Shell is a corporation, very big, large oil corporation across the world. So they have their own schools. The GEMS has probably the largest group of private schools across the world. Cognita, Nord Anglia, which has recently brought Oak Ridge, Embassy Group, ESOL, ESF, Talam, Aga Khan, so many others. These are some of the bigger sort of names in the market. And let's look at the scope. Yes, we can go ahead. We can go ahead. Now look at this slide. Scope of international schools worldwide. This is an important slide. Now look at the year, 2000. Look at where we are at to 2020. This was statistics that was presented by Jeffrey Thompson. I was really intrigued by this because he almost predicted that by 2026 we'll have a 50% increment in what we offer in international schools across the world. So today we have approximately 10,000 international schools across the world. Number of students are about 5 lakh. That many. I think it's check the number out for yourself. It looks like 42 lakh 60,000 to me. And then number of teaching staff. So there's a lot of lucrative option here because of the growth that is predicted. And this is worldwide. These statistics are worldwide. And he had referred to some of the research work that was being done at Bath University. And so the future prediction from 2020 to 2030 is almost a 40% increment, despite economic downturn, despite COVID situation, despite whatever there is. Schools are here to stay, healthcare is here to stay, and there is investment that is going to happen in this context, in the scope of international schools worldwide. Look at the leading areas of growth in international schools in 2020. This is the current statistics. As of today, the United Arab Emirates is the largest provider of international school education in the world. That means there are amongst all the countries in the world, UAE has the largest number of international schools, 624 international schools. China has 564, and India has 469. We are catching up very quickly, and hopefully in the next maybe 10 or 15 years, we could be on a par with the numbers that UAE boasts at the moment. The UAE, of course, has different kinds of schools, and they have their own traditional schools. They have IB, IGCSE, and they have articulation pathways all over the world. China is picking up very well with English as a language, and English medium schools, international schools are largely English medium schools with international curriculum offerings. And India has 176 IB schools out of 469 international schools. Like I said, international is not just IB, it has so many other accrediting boards. So 469 for you and 176 IB schools. So look at the next slide. So if you look at the next slide, here you go. Africa, not much growth from 2006. Americas, not much growth. They have their own national curriculum provision. Asia, now this is where you should stop and pause, because look at the red graph. 2006 to 2020, the schools in Asia grew fastest as compared to any other region in the world. Europe is growing, but not at a rate that we are growing. Oceania has a different scenario, not much growth. They have their own sort of model, and they have their own limitations, but they have an understanding that a school or an international school in America, that student can very comfortably adapt to an international school in Asia. If that child moves from Asia, if the client moves to Europe, then that child should be able to adapt to an international school setting in Europe. So that is the context of international, the mobility of the curriculum, the school, And the uniformity of faculty training, the evaluation of the school has to be kept similar. If not identical, it has to be similar. And that is why international schools have certain benchmarks, certain auditing systems, certain frameworks that keep the whole machinery well oiled and moving forward. Now look at the market value of international schools. English speaking international schools, the market is worth 39 billion US dollars. That's the fee income. And during the worst of the global downturn, the market grew financially by 7.8%. I think there's one more bullet point here. During the past 5 years, increase in fee income is 45.9%. There's a lot of contention about the fees that are being charged in international schools, but international schools from across the world, with the current statistics and the current numbers of all international schools that we are putting together, it's almost $900 billion income annually across the world. So if you do an analysis of this, that's a huge amount of money. And these are all private international schools. Some of them are, government schools, which are piggybacking on an accreditation overseas. But this is what the fee income is in international schools. And that is why certifications that give you an edge over the others in terms of pedagogy, in terms of assessment, in terms of ideology, in terms of personality, I think in terms of intellectual growth, in terms of research, you need to see where you fit in. I mean, all kinds of curriculum, like I said, right in the beginning, it's about international mindedness. Wherever you work, it doesn't matter. You will always be able to add value there. And in return, I think the institution will add you some value. So that is how you keep evolving as an intellectual. And fee income is not for teachers, it is for the institution. But if the institution earns good money, then faculty members can earn good money. Simple as that. Now, host country demand. As much as we want education to empower us, as much as we want education to provide for business growth and economic growth, it also needs to be seen what percentage of a country is actually benefiting from this curriculum accreditation. Now, with the exception of certain countries, most developing economies, Brazil, China, India, and attractive of English medium education, prove very attractive to a growing middle class or a burgeoning middle class, maybe a rich community that provides a competitive edge. For example, can we go ahead? It's a credentialist effect. I won't go into the technical jargon, but I'll explain what it is. Next slide. This is what it is. In 1983, I'll give you an example. Kodaikanal International School started about 100 years ago in Kodaikanal in Tamil Nadu. In the initial phase of that school, there was 80% of an expatriate population. 80% of the students were foreigners. Only 20% were Indian students. But now, 2020, 80% of students in international schools are Indians or NRIs, and only 20% on an average are expatriates. So this is the credentialist effect, which takes into account the growing needs of a country and how many people from that country are actually benefiting from that kind of a quality of education provision. Now let's look at some of the major professionally trained and experienced teachers and heads. Virtual learning models, because of the situational impact, there's a lot of emphasis now on technology, a lot of emphasis on virtual learning, and there's a lot of, I'd say, an emphasis on digital natives over digital immigrants. So if you're good with technology, you can bridge the gap in time and you can do things very quickly. And a medium is the message. So we can't just say that only technology is important. No, we need books, we need people. We need experiences, you need to travel. So all this is a blend of everything. You can't just say that I'll sit in my house and, I can make a difference. You can, but it'll be limited as compared to the other options. And if they're all blended in together, I'd see you get a better worldview from that. Universities and industry workforce requirements, a lot of careers are going outdated now. Knowledge obsolescence is rapid. Almost every 24 hours, you have knowledge that is being obsolete. So university and industry workforce requirements are changing. There are different careers in the next 10 years that you wouldn't know existed today. A lot of differences in expectations of parents, a lot of differences in expectation of students. And international schools, because they provide an elective sort of a study mode where a student can customize his or her own learning. That means a student can select a combination of subjects from liberal arts, from STEM subjects, from the arts subjects. So what happens is he or she can personalize the learning plan from a larger diversity of subject options and combinations and customize that learning according to his or her own benefit. That is why a faculty also needs to be adept with teaching more than 2 or 3 subjects. Of course, a domain area is very important, and a faculty has to have expertise in one area in an international school, but a biology teacher should also be able to comfortably teach few chemistry classes. And a language teacher should be able to teach literature. A math teacher should be able to take some amount of physics. So I think interdisciplinary learning research is what you need to look at as faculty members, because there are a lot of careers there that you probably don't know exist. There are a lot of study programs in universities that you probably don't know exist. And there are very good Indian universities like Christ University, and there are very many international universities that are existing, but due to the situational impact, you never know. In the next 3 to 5 years, you'll have more students coming into Indian universities from international schools. So you as faculty members, when you graduate from here, from the Christ College of Education, and you move into the workforce, you need to understand what is the market requirement. Where is the business sphere? How can you as a faculty member channelize a student into the right career area, into the right place? So it's not about teaching a subject. You should be aware of the market impact of your subject. Whether you're a physics teacher or math teacher, you should know the careers that are available. You should know the study programs. You should know those scholarships. And don't depend on one department to do everything. Yes, you can very well in a leadership role take on the identity of being an integrated teacher and adding more value to a student. Availability of land, curriculum accreditations, NOCs, a lot of government policies, the foreign direct investment, there are a lot of rules changing now. In fact, Christ is probably the only that has a group of schools and a university directly attached to it, and which has IB and national curriculum. So it's a very diverse, integrated sort of a learning space. And there are other institutions that are probably going to do this in the future right here in India. Now, looking at the increasing size of student, parent, market clientele, a lot of parents want their children to experience international schooling because of various reasons: good faculty, whatever, good experiential learning, good infrastructure, good curriculum accreditation. Like I said, better career choices because diverse subject options are afforded in the curriculum. And the fee factor. A lot of international schools are now also reducing their fees. So, a lot of subsidized dual curriculum option schools are there that offer national and international school experience on a particular campus. So that is a good choice that parents will have. We can go ahead. Now, look at the current strength of teaching faculty in international schools. Look at the growth from 2008 to 2020. So the good news here is we need 200,000 trained teachers by 2030, additional capacity across the world. This is what it is. So we have about 15,000 schools, and we have about 450 to 650,000 educators. Each international school has a ratio of 1:7, one teacher to 7 students, and a class size of certain numbers. And if it's in pre-primary, then they have 2 teachers in a class. So 15 students and two faculty members. So that is why there is going to be a lot of requirement of international school teachers over the next, I would say, 10 to 15 years. That's where you will benefit. Scope for teaching staff, that is you, once you qualify, the implications, the capacity building of international schools, new hires versus attrition. Most international schools have an attrition percentage of 14 to 22% every year. They want to increase their student strength by almost 20% to 30% every year. That means schools that are 500 capacity want to grow to 650. 600 want to go to 800, 800 want to go to 1200. So everybody is looking at increasing student strength. Even national curriculum schools have that issue. But with increasing student strength, they have to hire more faculty members. And looking at new hires and attrition, so every school will have at least 25 to 30 new vacancies. A middle-sized school will have that much. Larger schools have almost 40 to 50, a chain of school, 50 to 60 new teachers being hired every single year. So there is a lot of competition, but placements are available. You just need to be up to the mark, and you should make all the right plans to get into a good school. Chain of schools want to grow. from one city to another. They want to grow um, from a multicultural city to a two-tier city. Now, schools are moving to Ahmedabad, they're moving to Surat, they're moving to, they're moving to Telangana, they're moving to tier two cities. Gone are the days when only Bangalore, Delhi, and Bombay, and Calcutta, and Chennai were the major hubs. Schools are moving to tier two places, and tier three is picking up. So you see, there are different competitive sort of market scenarios because of large land availability and cheaper options. And there are schools in North India, they're still going strong. So they also want to increase their capacity now in terms of more branches. Competitive placements, that's folks like you. Once you finish, you have options to work wherever you want. Preparation and induction of staff, teaching qualifications are important. Predominant importance is paid. I mean, you get paid only if you're qualified. If you're a good teacher, your payment will not depend beyond just qualifications. It will depend a lot more on your experience. It will depend a lot more on your attitude, your mindset, your personality. International schools and international education require a lot of that. You need to be doing something that is multifaceted as a faculty. Continuing professional development of staff, the IB or the IGCSE, they have continuous professional development. Salaries are quite high. Let me tell you, the career enhancement pathways are good in both national and international curriculum schools. National curriculum schools, according to the 7th Pay Commission, are paying a very decent salary today. Most of the, even the CBSE and the DPS schools are paying a very decent salary to their faculty member. But the perquisites is what you need to take into consideration. International schools offer usually better perks to their faculty. In terms of perks, I mean, benefits beyond your salary. They offer you accommodation if you're from out of station. They usually offer subsidized education for 2 children, although national curriculum schools have started that. They give a faculty member a subsidized education for children in case you need it. Also, medical insurance. Many of the institutions are providing medical insurance. They are also giving you meals and training opportunities, and usually 60 to 70 calendar day holiday paid leave. And there's also unpaid leave for administrative staff that is encashed leave. So when you look at the overall picture, I think the perquisites are more than the pay scale. So you shouldn't just look at a salary structure. You should look at perquisites. You should look at career enhancement pathways. If a school wants to start 2 or 3 other branches across the country or in overseas areas, you will grow as the school grows. So stability is a very important factor for faculty. And the mobility of teachers is so high. Every 2 years, we have faculty bouncing from one school to another school, every 1 year. It's not really the right kind of thing to do, because education is one thing that requires stability. It requires some consistency. It requires some approach to dealing with children and, an older generation, usually in the management. But you need to have a hand holding there. And you need to understand that children need more time than you do to learn. And if you want to be a good role model, at least put in 3 years service in a school for sure. We can go ahead. Mobility, like I said, don't keep bouncing off all over the place. Now, here you go. Types of curriculum, proportion of schools. So if you look at the proportions of school, yes, there you go, bar graph. International schools across the world exceed in number and capacity as compared to national curriculum school in any country in the world. So you have more international schools in the world than national curriculum schools, surprising, on an average, on a world scale. You have more you have more international schools than British curriculum schools in the UK. So you have more international schools in the UK than British curriculum schools. Similarly, in the US or France or Germany, French and German schools are usually vernacular. They teach them French and German. Yes, they teach German. And some of the Scandinavian school, the Finland model is still growing very strong, where you have age groups and there's smaller age groups and play groups and no homework. They have some very intriguing sort of a model of education in Finland. And you can do a case study on that. There's a lot of improvement on teacher training areas also. So we are looking at best practices. We are looking at what we can learn, what we can share. And that's how education becomes a more enriched, mutually beneficial association between different organizations and different countries. So look at the summary of points, okay? I'm almost done. The summary of points concerning status of international schools, if you look at the ISE research. International schools are big business. They have attracted investment from governments and from commercial groups, and India is attracting a lot of attention with regards to investors coming in the future. Recruitment of staff is getting difficult, but salaries and packages will increase. That is undoubtedly, it's going to increase. Now the problem, COVID scenario, because of this, say for example, students in China or Korea or Thailand or even European countries may not be able to come back to schools, but they could always go online and continue to retain the admission for the next maybe 12 months and continue to study from wherever they are at. So that is only a situational impact. Hopefully the situation will improve and then we'll have all these people coming back together. A range of international curricula that is increasing, and English language education continues to be highly valued. Most careers are in English. So, I mean, the financial earning capacity will be determined by your ability to be proficient in English, apart from technology, which is IT, and where coding and working with machines is taking more of a precedence as compared to language and communication. For focus on holistic education, please don't forget this. It's not only about the marks. So you need to know about the concept of holistic development. You need to be a practitioner and all-round assessment of a student, whether it's cognitive, emotional, social, spiritual, physical, aesthetic. You need to know how to assess this, and that's where the Department of Education comes in, School of Education, and we can guide you with whatever information we have, whatever experiences we have. Our faculty are, I would say, well experienced, and also theory and practical training is now going hand in hand with the B.Ed and the PG diploma program. So we have a lot of mentors in international schools. So you can be assured that we will try our best to give you this experience here. Mobile students and parent populations. A lot of parents are moving across the world. So you need to be aware of their next step and how you can contribute to their future. Virtual blended expeditionary mobile school models, where a school may not be a stationary school anymore. It could be a mobile school. It could be like, students are traveling from one country to another. In the next 10 years, this is going to happen. So, schools beyond the classroom, schools without walls, mobile schools, expeditionary learning, a rotation of blended face-to-face, then go back home, a strategic pause, then reflection, then come back to school. That may happen. It right now happens only in master's and PhD programs, but it could very well happen in schools in the next decade or so. We can go ahead. Next slide, please. So this is a possible across 3 scenarios. Yes. So look at the first one, a brand model for building a chain of international schools. Here you go. I won't take names, but these brands want to build more schools. That means they're setting up a chain of schools, like 1, 2, 3. It's replicating the same brand. You have a KFC, you have McDonald's, and they just keep replicating wherever it is across the world. You build a brand and then you build a chain. Next. Then you can look at an exclusive standalone model of heritage schools. Is possibly in Europe, they have this model. In Britain, it's just one school, one name. And for generations and centuries together, there's just one school and they have a very strong heritage, and it's a standalone school. They will not replicate, they will not franchise, they will not have a chain. They're just one kind of school, and it's international curriculum. And the last but not the least, what I really think is going to capture the business space is the food court inclusive model for dual curriculum international schools. That means one school offering 2 or 3 type of curriculum accreditations. So you have a mix and match, and parents, according to their affordability, can pick and choose which curriculum they would like to choose, whether it's ICSE or IG or IB. They can look at it. Of course, you need to benchmark different faculty for this and a different quality of experience also. That remains a challenge with these schools, but it is possible to have a benchmarking within one institution. Now let's look at the economic implications. Last few slides before I close. The bigger picture, education is a $2.2 trillion industry. 5% was private in 1965. In 2020, only 9% of education is provided by private institutions. There is a lot of capacity in private education space, and there are a lot of equity, a lot of foreign direct investment, a lot of mergers and acquisitions that are going to take place in the next 10 years between international schools, universities, etc. There are approximately 600 million children in India and China combined, and 300 million English-speaking students in India. That is larger than the population of the United States and Canada in terms of English-speaking population. But the paradoxical problem here is India also has the largest population of illiterate people on the planet. So that being said, we have very highly educated people, and so the have and have-nots is a big sort of a sort of a chasm, and we have to bridge the gap. And it is an opportunity. Look at it as an opportunity, because an educational revolution can spark an economic evolution. You can go ahead. So look at education in the world economy. Like I said, it's $2.2 trillion, and it's just going to grow. And a lot of shares are going to come into Asia, and I'll show you how. Can we go ahead? So look at the current scenario. Now look at world geography and population. You have to look at the population before you consider education. You need to look at population. Look at Asia's population, 61%. Look at the population of North America, only 19%. South America, 7.5%. Europe, 10%. So where is the opportunity? Asia. Asia is the next big market for education. Next. Now look at this scenario. Okay, this is a relative economic size population 2010. 35% of economic evolution was seen in America. It's still there. 35% of the economic evolution took place because of whatever reasons, industrialization, the dollar value, and better governance, or whatever it is. I mean, more resources, whatever it is. Now Asia was pegged at 30%, Europe at 28%. Now because of our highly diverse, young, youthful population in India and China, we are now poised to I would say, go ahead with sort of a situation which will probably peg us on a higher note with regard to financial emoluments as a country and economic growth. Next slide. This is an important slide. Look at 2040. This is a projection. Okay, this is what I'm projecting. I've done some research. North America would be at 25%. Asia will probably be poised to grow at 58%. So the countries in Asia, because of the large population, if we invest properly in our people, if the whole concept of investment in education is understood, like I said, an educational revolution can cause an economic evolution. So teachers, people like you and me, are definitely going to make the world a better place. There may be even better global scenarios and metaphors. It depends how you want to co-create these. Let us envision these and let us go forward with a focused mindset and with a ferocity of purpose that can overcome all challenges to make our country and other countries a better place. Questions? Schooling in the US is public, private, and a merger of sorts. So a lot of states in the US, for example, say Michigan or Minnesota, they have their own teaching license. For each state, they have their own governance and their own teaching license. IB crosscuts all this. Okay, it offers you a birth of international schooling which is on a par with Europe or America or India. So IB is cross-cutting, trying to cross-cut the barriers of national education or the limitations of national education. So the thing is, of course, it's an English-speaking population in America and the UK. That is why curriculum accreditations are easier for them. The quality of infrastructure is easier for them to provide. In India, we are growing as a country, but look at the population. India has a very large population of young people, much more than the US and Canada. And look at China, okay? Look at UAE. So if you look at the population structure and the population demographics, that is why there is more scope for education or education provision for people populations in these countries. And that is why obviously more financial benefit and more financial sectors will contribute for the growth of education in these areas as compared to the other countries in the next few years because of the older population demographics over there. But there's always going to be a healthy mix. Like, for example, students or children who are studying in international schools in India want to go for higher education. They want to go to universities and colleges in different parts of the world. That is a choice they make depending on affordability. So they may traverse across and then they come back to work here, or they may work there for some time. So you see, international education is making the world a mobile village. It is giving people opportunities. It's all about creating opportunities, whether it's a financial opportunity or whether it's educating a people population or making the world a better place, safer place. That's what it is all about. So it's not just pure business sense that America has more international schools than India. You know, they have, but over the past few years, UAE, China, India has overtaken the US in terms of provision of international schools. And I mean, let's not say that artificial intelligence is going to take over international schools as compared to a teaching population. No, a teaching fraternity is going to always be. I mean, without me, this lecture won't make any sense and won't make much sense to you. You need to understand artificial intelligence is a mechanism to make education more enriched experience in terms of faster delivery, quicker connectedness, and I would say more user friendly and flexible in terms of where you're connecting with people. So that is there. But remember, a teacher is someone who is emotionally and spiritually empowered. Artificial intelligence does not have that. It has probably cognitive to a basic extreme supercomputer abilities, but that is not equivalent to any human being or good intellectual teacher. And it's a good hand-in-hand combination where you use it as a tool, and the faculty is using that artificial intelligence machinery to give you, the learning, delivering the curriculum using that machinery. But the selection process will be limited to question answers, face-to-face, JDs, your experience. Artificial intelligence will play a role for sure, but it will not supersede the abilities of an evolved educator. Moment we have 176 IB schools in India. It's growing at a growth rate of 20-25%. National curriculum schools outnumber international schools in India. State board schools is different phenomena. But like I said, the salary structures don't really vary too much. I mean, maybe state board schools, it does because of the fees, It's just equivalent to the fees. So more fees, more salaries. So that's how it is. So I don't think you should worry too much about where you start. It's about getting into the field and then slowly working your way up. And education is a patient sector. It's not like a corporate sector where you're here and then next day there. It doesn't work like that. You need to have enough patience, maturity, and the sort of you will evolve in time. I mean, you need to give yourself some time to make yourself credible as a faculty. I don't think so, because they have a different clientele, a different requirement. And India has such large populations of, I'd say, underprivileged sections of society that we cannot expect them, neither can we force them to get into a socio-economic milieu that is not, comfortable for them. So we need to understand that international schools are serving a certain kind of clientele with a certain kind of expectation. But because we have such large pockets of underprivileged sections of society, the state board schools are going to cater to them, and you have the Right to Education Act, and we have to appreciate and applaud the efforts of the government for bringing up the RTE and for looking after those children as well, because economic evolution is not one-sided. You can't have a very rich population and a very poor population. The country will always be staggered in its growth. You need to have a uniform spectrum of evolved, financially evolved population. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Like, some people are getting rich and some are just going to be in abstract poverty. The country won't develop. It won't. It'll have a staggered growth. So we are needing to look at just upholding everybody, and there's a boost for everybody, whether it's the poor section of society or whether it's a financially richer section of society. So education has to go hand in glove with wherever they are at, in rural education or community education, or whether it's international schools. So there's no competition there. There's no competition. They're doing their thing. We are doing our thing. We help them. They try to add value to us in the future. That's how it goes. Whether we are only serving a privileged clientele that can afford that education, whereas other schools don't have what they should be getting, and the faculty salaries and whatever perks, whatever it is. So I'll tell you what happens here. It's a dilemma. All right. Business houses, they are the ones that fund these, the builders and some of the political leaders. They fund international school, the embassy groups. Some private corporations fund international schools. So what would be a good model, like I said, would be a dual curriculum option. That is a more inclusive option where you can have one curriculum provision and then another curriculum option also, so that it will be more inclusive for students and faculty to study on the same campus. And whether it's a community outreach program, whether it's a national curriculum accreditation and international curriculum accreditation, it does not dilute the brand, let me tell you. It does not. And full spectrum baccalaureate schools are free to make their independent decisions because they are private. They are not governed, they just need an NOC from the state government, but they are governed by their own parent advisory, and they can charge fees. We are no one to tell them what to do. So they have their own advisory, they advise them what to do. And you have national curriculum schools which function under the aegis and good books of the government. And the governments partly subsidize the education for faculty, and they even invest in them. So private schools, most of the money is through investors, through philanthropists. It is through parents that give very large donations and fees. So it's a different clientele. So it's a different sector. International school sector is a different sector. National school sector is a different sector. Both are growing in India, is what I'm trying to say. Both are growing in India because of the sheer population size. And you can peg yourself very well in international or national. It doesn't really matter. Because even national curriculum schools, right now, the investment in education is only 4% of the GDP. Where in the US and Canada, it's 14 and 16%. So one fine day, people will realize that we need to invest more. And once that changes, your faculty salaries, the investment in schools, and a lot of other things will improve in India. Of course, it's a patient approach, and India takes strides at a not so fast a pace than other countries. That is why it's a developing country. That being said, I think we are catching up very quickly. And in the next few years, with shared responsibilities and shared understanding between different people communities, I think international and national curriculum education will grow leaps and bounds. And then we can hopefully bridge the inequality. Very good question. We want to bridge inequality. We want to make equal, equitable society. Is going to be a problem with the economy. Yes, there will be a setback. People can't go to work. Businesses can't function. Small business houses, laborers, daily wage laborers are going back. They are migrating back to their places. But like in the US, they can't work. I mean, we have people there and they can't go to work. They're working from home. Some of them are going and coming. Australia has come to a standstill. Canada has come to a standstill. But Switzerland has come to a standstill. But I'm not saying that business is not happening, but airlines have come to a standstill. In 3-4 months, the airlines have lost over $1 million a day. A good airline. They are grounded. They can't do anything. And there are shares. Each airline has shares. If it's grounded, if there's no business, the shares in the stock market crashes. So that's how it works. If the businesses don't work, the share market goes down. And a ripple effect in one country is felt in another country because there's a lot of investment of shareholders from one country to another country. So you see, this is what happens. So if you're asking me that there's going to be a recession of sorts, probably, yes, for a couple of years. And it'll take some time to build back up. And health is more important than wealth. Health is wealth. So if you have a very sick country and a sick population, and I don't think we can get back on our feet. Hopefully, a vaccine will be released in due course of time, and if we do have a vaccine in place, then we'll have a healthy population. We can all get back to our normal lives and make a change. But life is not all about business. It's all about people. It's about personalities. It's about education. It's about quality of experiences in life. So business should be a secondary sort of a driving factor for education. Education is a human right.